man, you can get through this shit. You gotta just find out, like, what's next after what you lost. If you find out, when I lost my brother, I almost killed myself, bro. I thought about this shit several times. And I ain't never thought like that, but I was like, damn. And I realized, I'm like, I got another brother, mama. I got, you know what I'm saying, kids. It's more to live for. Like, you gotta just sit back and think, bro. Like, it's somebody out there going through worse than what you going through.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're talking about a story that sparked a lot of debate, a lot of questions, and a lot of reactions across the internet. We're diving into the story of Blac Youngsta, his rise to success, major controversies, difficult moments, and the events that changed the direction of his career and public image. This story has a lot of twists, so let's jump straight into it. This story needs attention because this right here is bigger than rap beef. This is not just about an artist losing momentum or a career slowing down. This is about a man who seemed to hit every wrong turn at the exact moment things should have been going right, then ended up standing in the middle of the chaos trying to figure out how everything flipped upside down. We're talking about Blac Youngsta, Sammy Benson, raised in South Memphis and coming out of a place where life was already throwing hard punches from the jump. This was a dude who started with almost nothing, fought his way out the mud, stacked up millions, built a label, and had people riding with him all across the city. Then suddenly, it felt like everything started shaking apart fast. But this story hits different from the usual rapper fell off talk people throw around online because this situation carries a lot more weight and a lot more questions. This wasn't only about music numbers dropping or a project not making noise. It wasn't just about streams slowing down or a rough rollout either. Nah, this situation started getting connected to bigger conversations about loyalty, street ties, and serious events that sparked non-stop rumors and debates around Memphis. People started looking at the situation differently, and the energy around his name began changing fast. The wild part is that people say there were signs popping up everywhere. Looking back, some think the warning lights were flashing long before things started crashing down. So let's break this all the way down because people have been dancing around this story for years. And to understand the road that led here, we gotta run it back to South Memphis, a place known for struggle, pressure, and a rough environment that shaped a lot of lives. This was the kind of zip code that usually didn't grab headlines because somebody was winning or building something positive. Most of the attention came when tragedy hit and something bad happened. Sammy Benson grew up inside that reality every day. No silver spoon, no big industry connections, no famous family member opening doors behind the scenes. It was just the streets around him, non-stop hustle, and a voice that sounded rough, gritty, and packed with ambition. He started putting out music around 2012, dropping his first mixtape Fast Bricks, then Fast Bricks 2, and after that Fast Bricks 3. There was no major label machine behind him, and no huge cosign pushing his name into the spotlight. It was straight work mode, grinding the Memphis way and putting out project after project until people had no choice but to start noticing what he was doing. He kept applying pressure and stayed active. Then somebody finally paid attention and things started moving fast. In 2015, Youngsta released a track called Heavy. If you know that record, then you already know the energy was different. That song came through with raw intensity and no polished up image attached to it. It had that gritty feeling that pulled people in and made listeners stop and pay attention. Yo Gotti heard the track and moved quickly. Before long, Blac Youngsta signed with Collective Music Group, better known as CMG, one of Memphis's biggest names in rap at the time. Just like that, the whole situation shifted. One minute it was all grind mode with limited resources, and the next minute he was stepping into a much bigger lane. That's the dream a lot of people chase, street style with the stakes turned all the way up. Youngsta kept pushing full speed and didn't waste the opportunity in front of him. He dropped I Swear to God in 2015, Baby Jesus in 2016, along with records like Shake Some, and he stayed active, non-stop. The work rate was serious. He kept feeding listeners new music and built a reputation for being consistent. People connected with him because they felt he was being himself and not trying to play a role for cameras or social media. His image stayed tied to South Memphis, and a lot of people respected that connection. By 2017, things started leveling up even more. He launched his own imprint, Heavy Camp, under the CMG umbrella and kept expanding his position in the game. The moves were getting bigger, the opportunities were growing, and it looked like the future was lining up in a major way. He was building, stacking wins, and sitting inside one of the strongest label systems in rap at that time. From the outside looking in, everything seemed locked in and moving toward an even bigger run. But behind all of that success, another story was starting to develop. Around the same time Youngsta was climbing higher, serious tension and competition in Memphis rap was becoming a major topic.
This year, 100 bullets were fired into Young Dolph's SUV, and 3 months later, police have pinned Memphis rapper Blac Youngsta for his alleged involvement. Authorities have revealed that the van used to shoot up Dolph's bulletproof SUV in February was rented by Youngsta, whose associates later turned themselves over to the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office, where they were then charged with 6 counts each of discharging a weapon into occupied property and felony conspiracy.
Whether he expected it or not, people began connecting his name to one side of a much bigger situation. Now this is where things started getting intense, because the background matters if you're trying to understand everything that happened after. Around 2014, Memphis rapper Young Dolph was creating major buzz. Born Adolph Thornton Jr. in Chicago and raised in Memphis, Dolph carved out his own lane without depending on the usual industry path. No major label machine, no giant cosign pushing him forward, just paper route empire, his own brand and his own movement. Reports and stories around the industry said Yo Gotti tried bringing him in, but Dolph decided to go another direction. That decision reportedly became part of growing tension and competition that people later talked about for years. Then, 2016 arrived and Dolph dropped his first studio album called King of Memphis. On the surface, it looked like a title for an album, simple enough. But in Memphis, where status, influence, and city pride can carry real meaning, people started reading deeper into it. To some observers and fans, it felt less like a title and more like a statement, almost like somebody walking into the room and saying, "You're not what you think you are." That was the moment Blac Youngsta stepped directly into the spotlight of the situation. On March 2nd, 2016, Youngsta posted a video on Instagram aimed at Young Dolph, throwing out criticism, questioning his image, and challenging where he stood in Memphis conversations. Things immediately got louder after that. Then reports and online discussions focused on Youngsta showing up in an area connected to Dolph with his crew while recording video content, and people saw it as a serious message being sent. That was way beyond regular social media back and forth in the eyes of a lot of fans. People weren't looking at it like random internet drama anymore. The energy around it started feeling much bigger, and discussions across blogs and hip-hop pages went into overdrive. Soon after that, Youngsta released a diss record called Shake Some, with intense lyrics and heavy street-style energy. The track definitely got attention, but many people felt it also turned up the pressure in a situation that already had a lot of heat around it. Then February 2017 arrived, and this is where events took an even more serious turn. Young Dolph was in Charlotte, North Carolina for a performance tied to a college basketball event. On February 25th, gunfire struck Dolph's vehicle while he was inside. Reports said more than 100 rounds were fired toward the vehicle, which immediately sent shockwaves through fans and headlines across hip-hop media. Dolph survived the incident because the vehicle was reportedly armored and able to withstand the attack. After the investigation moved forward, Blac Youngsta and 2 other men were arrested in connection with the shooting and faced multiple felony charges, including charges related to discharging a weapon into occupied property and conspiracy allegations. The headlines exploded, and suddenly this situation had moved into a completely different lane. Those were extremely serious charges, the kind that can completely change somebody's life and future. But this is where the story started taking another turn, because things quickly became more complicated than many people expected. As the case moved forward, the charges were eventually dropped. According to statements from the Charlotte District Attorney, investigators did not find evidence placing Youngsta inside the vehicle involved in the shooting.
Rapper Young Dolph was shot and killed at a bakery today. Young Dolph, whose real name is Adolph Robert Thornton Jr., was reportedly buying cookies at this bakery in his hometown when someone drove up and shot him. He was expected to give out turkeys for Thanksgiving on Friday. A county commissioner called his death gut-wrenching.
Reports also said he had an alibi and stated that he was in Durham during that time. Because of that, the case came to an end. Youngsta walked away, Dolph survived, and life in Memphis kept moving forward like the city always does. But even after the legal side settled down, the tension surrounding the situation didn't just disappear. Events like that can leave behind questions, emotions, and long-lasting effects that don't automatically vanish because paperwork changes. A lot of people felt the energy between the two camps stayed cold long after the headlines slowed down. Dolph continued growing his career and strengthening his independent movement, building on the path he had already created for himself. Youngsta kept moving with CMG and stayed active with his own team and music. Both names remained connected to Memphis, and people kept paying attention whenever conversations around the rivalry resurfaced. Even when the music wasn't making as much noise around the situation, many fans felt there was still unfinished tension in the background. In Memphis, people often pay attention to patterns, and discussions around this topic never fully disappeared. Then, November 17th, 2021 arrived, and everything changed. Around 1:05 p.m., Young Dolph went to Makita's Cookies, a bakery in his Memphis neighborhood that had become known as a place he supported because he believed in giving back and investing in businesses connected to the community he came from. Young Dolph was known for staying connected to the city and showing up in places that mattered to him. People often saw him moving through Memphis, supporting businesses, and staying close to the community that helped shape his journey. Then tragedy hit. Two men entered the location and opened fire. And Adolph Thornton Jr., known to the world as Young Dolph, lost his life at 36 years old. He left behind his partner, his family, and a legacy that many fans and artists respected deeply. The reaction across hip-hop was massive. Memphis went into mourning, social media exploded, and messages of support and tribute started pouring in from every direction. For many people, this felt bigger than losing a rapper. Dolph had become a symbol of building your own path, staying independent, and creating success without waiting for permission from anybody else. A lot of people saw him as proof that you could stay connected to where you came from while still aiming much higher. Now people immediately started asking questions about everyone connected to past tensions and rivalries surrounding Dolph, and attention quickly shifted toward Blac Youngsta. For a short time, Youngsta stayed quiet publicly, and people online definitely noticed that. But then discussions really started heating up after his appearance at a concert in Dallas only days later. During the performance, Youngsta performed Shake Some, a track widely connected by fans to his history with Dolph. That moment sent social media into complete chaos. People started debating it everywhere, and reactions came fast. Even people who knew about the long history and tension between the two artists were shocked by the timing. For many observers, the public image around that decision created a major storm because perception can change everything, especially during emotional moments like that. The internet was in full meltdown mode, and the conversations only kept getting louder. To a lot of people watching from the outside, the situation started looking very different. Public reaction was becoming more intense, and many felt the image surrounding everything was moving into uncomfortable territory. Then another moment added even more heat to the conversation. Youngsta released a song called I'm Assuming, and people immediately started paying attention to the visuals connected to it. In the video, Youngsta is shown walking through a cemetery and stopping near a gravestone. Viewers quickly noticed that the name on the stone read Thornton, Young Dolph's last name, placed clearly in the shot. Once people saw that, social media completely lit up. The reactions started flying from every direction, and conversations around the video spread across blogs, comment sections, and hip-hop pages almost instantly. The backlash was huge. Fans, artists, media personalities, and people throughout the industry all had opinions. For many viewers, the narrative formed fast, and online discussions started painting a very specific picture. Whether that interpretation matched the actual intention or not, many people felt they had already made up their minds. In the world of public opinion, perception can move faster than facts, and once people lock into a belief, things can escalate quickly. Youngsta later addressed the criticism on Instagram and said he came from South Memphis, where he felt people viewed situations differently, and he also made it clear he wasn't focused on outside opinions. He said he wasn't going to pretend to be somebody else for the public. Some people respected him for standing on what he believed, while others felt the situation called for a different approach. People online kept debating where the line sat between staying true to yourself and making choices that create bigger problems. Then another wave hit. Rumors exploded online claiming Yo Gotti had quietly cut ties with Youngsta and moved him out of CMG. Blogs grabbed the story, social media ran with it, and suddenly people were acting like the decision had already happened. Gotti later stepped in and publicly called the reports fake news, saying Youngsta was a boss and wasn't dropped. Youngsta even appeared on CMG's Gangsta Art project in 2022. But even with that response, people felt something in the atmosphere had changed. Even if the official business side said Youngsta was still connected to CMG, a lot of people felt the vibe around everything had changed. The momentum looked different, public support seemed different, and the conversations online definitely weren't the same anymore. Fans started watching every move and trying to piece together a bigger picture. As the years passed and investigations continued, more details and allegations connected to young Dolph's murder started becoming public through court proceedings and news reports. People began looking beyond the idea of a random act of violence and started paying close attention to the relationships and connections being discussed during the case. That's when many people online started linking names and trying to understand who knew who and how different circles overlapped. Eventually, 3 men were charged in connection with young Dolph's murder: Cornelius Smith Jr., Justin Johnson, and Hernandez Govan. And Govan's name especially caught attention because reports and testimony connected him to people associated with the CMG circle. He wasn't being discussed as just some random person with no ties to the industry world. His name quickly became one of the biggest topics surrounding the case. According to testimony and allegations presented during court proceedings, prosecutors argued that Govan played a role in organizing the crime and claimed he acted under direction connected to Anthony Big Jook Mims, who was Yo Gotti's brother. Once those names started being mentioned publicly, the internet exploded with reactions. People across hip-hop media and social platforms immediately started talking because the implications sounded huge. Prosecutors presented a theory that the tension between CMG and Dolph's Paper Route empire involved more than just music competition and suggested deeper issues may have existed underneath the surface. Then in September 2024, Cornelius Smith Jr. reportedly testified in court and admitted involvement, while also making claims that a $100,000 bounty had been placed on young Dolph and alleging that Dolph had been watched before the attack. Those were claims raised in testimony in court proceedings, and the case became one of the most heavily discussed stories in hip-hop circles. According to testimony presented in court, Smith said they eventually found Dolph at the cookie shop and carried out the attack. During testimony, he reportedly said, "I wasn't feeling nothing at the time. I was just trying to get some money." That statement hit people hard. A lot of listeners were shocked by how direct it sounded. The idea that a life could be taken over money and alleged promises discussed in court left many people stunned and emotional. People looked at the bigger picture and saw a man whose career had been built around independence and moving on his own terms. Dolph had spent years creating his own lane, building his own brand, and proving he could succeed without depending on major industry systems. That's part of why the case carried such a heavy impact across hip-hop circles and beyond. Then in September 2024, Justin Johnson was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison. Later, Hernandez Govan went to trial in 2025 and was ultimately acquitted, a decision that immediately sparked strong reactions and conversations across Memphis and online communities. People had a lot to say, and debates started spreading fast across social media and hip-hop platforms. Now, this is where people began asking another major question. Where exactly did Blac Youngsta fit into all of this? That's where a lot of discussion started getting mixed with assumptions and online theories. To keep things clear, Blac Youngsta was never charged in connection with young Dolph's 2021 murder. The individuals charged were Hernandez Govan, Justin Johnson, and Cornelius Smith. There was no indictment against Youngsta, and that point matters because facts need to stay separate from speculation. But public conversations don't always stop at court documents. People often focus on connections, history, and who had long-running tensions with who. Since Youngsta had been one of the most visible figures tied to the CMG and Dolph rivalry for years, his name continued appearing in discussions. Between diss tracks, public back-and-forth moments, and earlier controversies, some people felt his name stayed linked to the broader story in public opinion, even though no criminal charges connected him to Dolph's murder. But the story kept getting heavier because while Youngsta was already dealing with public pressure, non-stop headlines, and intense attention around everything happening in the rap world, his personal life was also being hit with painful losses. On August 18, 2023, a shooting at a BP gas station on South Parkway East in Memphis took the life of a man. Reports later identified the victim as Youngsta's brother, and news of it spread quickly. Take away the music, the online debates, and all the public noise for a second. Losing a family member cuts deeper than headlines ever can. No matter how tough somebody appears, no matter how much confidence they show in public, a loss inside your own family can completely shake everything around you. Moments like that stop people in their tracks and change the atmosphere instantly. And reports over the years said this was not the first devastating loss his family had experienced. Youngsta had spoken before about losing multiple brothers to violence throughout his life. That's an amount of pain and grief that can leave lasting scars on anybody. Those are the kinds of phone calls and moments that people never fully forget. A lot of people watching from the outside started noticing the painful contrast in the bigger picture. For years, Youngsta had been one of the loudest voices in highly public rivalries and controversies, while at the same time dealing with heartbreaking losses in his own life. It added another layer to the story and reminded people that behind the music, headlines, and internet discussions, real families and real people are affected by tragedy. The situation carried a weight far beyond rap conversations, and the emotional toll became impossible for many people to ignore. People online were even posting dolphin emojis under posts about Youngsta's brother after the tragedy happened, and that showed just how deep the emotions and divisions had become. No matter where someone stands on rap rivalries or old beefs, losing a family member is still a painful situation that many people would see as deserving compassion. But by that point, a lot of public opinion around Youngsta had already shifted hard, and even during one of his most difficult moments, some people still weren't willing to show sympathy. That became part of the image and narrative surrounding him. Over time, people noticed his music releases slowing down, his public appearances becoming less frequent, and the energy around his name changing. From the outside looking in, it seemed like a man carrying a lot of pressure while dealing with personal losses, public criticism, and non-stop headlines all at once. And the internet rarely hits the pause button. Then there were the legal issues that continued following him over the years, adding even more weight to an already complicated story. In 2019, Youngsta and 3 other people were reportedly stopped after a traffic violation involving a GMC Yukon. According to reports, officers said they smelled marijuana and later searched the vehicle. Authorities stated they found marijuana and firearms inside, and Youngsta faced felony charges related to possession of prohibited ammunition. Those are the types of cases that can stay attached to a person's record and continue showing up in future legal situations. Then, in October 2020, reports said Youngsta was involved in another traffic stop in Dallas while riding as a passenger in a vehicle. Authorities reported finding a handgun, and he was charged with unlawfully carrying a weapon before later being booked into Dallas County Jail on bond. When you look at the full story, this isn't just a conversation about music or fame anymore. It's about choices, pressure, loyalty, public image, tragedy, and how fast situations can change when everything starts colliding at once. Drop your thoughts in the comments because this story has had people debating for years. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody who follows hip-hop news, and let me know your opinion below because this conversation is far from quiet.